There's a couple brand new Nintendo Switch stories we need to talk about today, starting with some more great news for Nintendo and their bottom line, as we are now well into the 5th full year of the Switch being sold and available on the market. Then the big talking point for today's video has to do with that surprise update that we saw hit Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack late last night, and some questions that are now answered with this latest update, as well as confirmed changes and a breakdown of what to expect with the future roadmap of games on NSO Plus expansion pack going forward. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, we got a couple different stories to discuss today, and we have to kick it off with the conversation around Nintendo and their forward momentum with their current family of consoles, as clearly this is a new step for the company, as in the past we have always seen Nintendo sell two separate lines, being a home console line of systems as well as a portable line of systems, and the Switch clearly merges that together, which also is causing them to have truly historical unit sales with this current generation, and it's most likely going to be the best selling home console of all time when this is all said and done, if you can take Nintendo at face value and they say that the Switch is still roughly halfway in its life cycle. That may or may not be accurate. They could be referencing a more powerful model that will extend the Switch family of systems for a couple more years. They could also be referencing that there will be new hardware out, but they'll continue to sell the Switch on the market still. But regardless of what we see them do with all of that, I am fairly confident with how it's tracking right now that we're going to be talking about the best home selling console, and most likely just portable console period, when it's all said and done at the end of this thing. And the reason that the sales numbers are in the news today, as you can see the following posted up over from Matt who works at the NPD group, who tracks all of the hardware and software sales here in the North American region, where he has the following to say for Nintendo Switch hardware sales. Switch is projected to lead 2022 console hardware in units sold, with dollar leadership a too close to call race between Switch, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series. Xbox Series is projected to be the only console hardware platform to show dollar sales growth compared to 2021. Now, while these are still projected numbers at this point in time, I think you can make the case that yes, Nintendo will indeed most likely take the lead in 2022 in terms of total unit sales. Whether or not that breaks down to revenue as well remains to be seen, and you do have to keep in mind that they are selling the Switch Lite at $199, the base model Switch at $299, and then ultimately the Switch OLED at $349. Now we even have a new SKU to add in that may drive sales for new collectors or people that were holding off on, of course, upgrading to the OLED to begin with. If you are a Splatoon fan, or if you just really like the look of the console, clearly we now have that Splatoon edition of the OLED to look forward to as well. That will most likely also drive some additional numbers throughout the rest of the year, which is kind of crazy whenever you break it down and think that this is competing against what would be the next gen consoles for the competition, being the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S. And while yes, they are definitely hampered by the chip situation going on with the shortage, and this would most likely be very different numbers if Sony or Microsoft could actually source all of the consoles to meet the demand that's out there, it's also notable that as we are well into the 5th year of the Switch being sold, that it's still leading in unit sales and actually keeping up in a revenue front, even though it's significantly lower cost than the other consoles. Outside of the Series S, I guess, as that one is at $299, and that's tracking in the same family of consoles with Microsoft's, which I think is working out very great for them. Even though it's a digital only console, you definitely get a lot of horsepower for a home console, and if you just want a Game Pass machine, like that definitely has a rightful place in the market and makes sense why certain users are gravitating towards it. But I want to hear from you guys on this particular story. Do you think that we see a big downshift in the back half of 2022 and Nintendo doesn't ultimately walk away with the units lead overall in sales? Do you think that Nintendo, it is time for them to put out any kind of more powerful revision to the Switch hardware, or should they just continue to coast on their numbers through the end of something like a late 2023 or into 2024 before any kind of hardware revision? Even though I think we might have a strong chance of seeing something launch alongside of Breath of the Wild 2. That is where I'm now setting my expectations. Granted, I'm not going to be super upset if it doesn't happen, but I do think that would be a smart move for Nintendo to truly give a huge uptick in Switch sales, because I think a lot of the base model Switch owners would upgrade to play Breath of the Wild 2 in the top quality it can be played at and the smoothest frame rate. But that's just my personal opinion on it. I want to hear from you guys on all the things with Switch sales momentum and what you think Nintendo will do with the future of the hardware in the comments down below. Now, the other story we're talking about today has to do with that surprise update to Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack that went live that I don't think many people were anticipating, because you probably saw a lot of the talk online suggesting, well, what is Nintendo going to do here? They wrapped up their initial roadmap of announced games that we saw them originally unveil when they launched the service back in October, and they say, hey, all these other games are also coming. They got to the end of that roadmap. We all assumed that that date would most likely correlate with June doing the one per month, as they ultimately stuck to throughout that entire roadmap schedule. Then if you look at history, you would assume that Nintendo would hold their major summertime E3 style direct in June, regardless of if E3 was a thing or not, and clearly that didn't happen. And the thought is that in June they're going to give us an updated part 2 of Nintendo 64 games roadmaps, and whenever we're just left in the dark waiting and we're now into July, we didn't know what to expect. But you can see that we do have a confirmed title for July that is not a part of any roadmap. We had zero expectation that it was coming, and Nintendo went ahead and announced it. As you can see, the following posted up from Nintendo of America: join Ash, Brock, and Misty as they gather in Puzzle Village to compete for the title of Pokemon Puzzle Master. Pokemon Puzzle League is coming to Nintendo Switch for Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack members on 7/15. Now, for me personally, I did not play Pokemon Puzzle League back on the N64, so I don't have the nostalgia for this game. However, what I do like, just from looking at the trailer, is the fact that it is heavily anime influenced, which I do have a ton of nostalgia for, especially the original seasons of the OG Pokemon anime. I was completely immersed in that series and bought in, and day one on all the movies that were released alongside of them. Like, definitely that aspect sticks out to me as a very cool style. However, I'm not the biggest on those match color puzzle style games, so I'll give this one a shot and boot it up without the nostalgia factor there for me. But that's just one aspect to the story that's kind of interesting that we do need to break down, because yes, we did get that one game per month confirmation here in North America for Pokemon Puzzle League, and you might just think, well, that's how Nintendo will do it going forward, and we will continue to get one new game per month added into NSO Plus expansion pack. However, you may remember on the channel a while back, we covered the fact that Japan in their particular trailer had custom robo games included in there that the US was not slated for, as I believe those are region specific games that never got any kind of localization. And so it was a surprise that yes, in Japan they're going to actually technically get more N64 games than what we got. However, they are not spreading that out in an individual month release and kind of fragmenting where Japan gets certain games and the US gets certain games. Rather, they included the custom robo games into the latest update on the same day, which is July 15th. And that's kind of crazy in and of itself, because technically in that region you are getting 3 new N64 games, as you get custom robo V2 and Pokemon Puzzle League all in the same update, which is definitely like, okay, is this a one-off scenario, or now that Nintendo has gotten past some of the big heavy hitter titles, and even though we're not in the conversation for the custom robo games being added in the rest of the world, do they start to have that mentality where yes, we've gotten through some of the big first party Nintendo titles that are marquee ones like your Ocarina of Times, your Majora's Mask, your Mario 64, your Banjo-Kazooie, amongst many others. And while we may still only be able to expect one new N64 game per month, I do like to see this 3-game drop over in Japan, just for the simple hope that maybe as we get further into the N64 library, and I am a still firm believer in that data mine that took place suggesting that we should see 38 games ultimately added into the service, that at some point we will see Nintendo shift to a 2 or 3 bundled games together, kind of like we see happen for things like Sega Genesis and SNES and NES updates. And if we have that revolving door of multiple games being added into all these different consoles, it definitely makes a lot of sense at that $50 annual price point, not to mention the fact that we still have things to look forward to, like the Game Boy family of systems that we know Nintendo has a active emulator for. It is just a matter of when they are ready to launch that into the service, September being the most likely and soonest time window, although they could drip feed this out even further and wait until next year. But if I'm going to expect GBA or any of the Game Boy family systems to hit the service at all, I think it's at the September Direct, when they historically have always had that section that talks about Nintendo Switch Online with new consoles being added in. So I personally found this update fascinating as it confirmed a couple things for us and answered some questions. Nintendo doesn't have to come out with a part 2 roadmap for N64 games. They are going to clearly transition this into how they treat the other library of games with just surprise announcements, and there is the card on the table for the possibility of multiple N64 games to be launched on the service in the same month, which I am definitely a fan of, especially as we get to some of the smaller titles. Although, to be fair, we still have big titles that are missing, like your Super Smash Bros. Maybe one day GoldenEye, although I'm more just leaning towards that maybe being an individual release as a remaster, and Microsoft and Nintendo both get that. Regardless of all of that and which other games we see them do, like DK64, hopefully Diddy Kong Racing, and I'm sure we'll get games like Wave Race 64 and many others. Like, they still have plenty to go. The Mario Party games, just for throwback reasons with online play on the N64 visuals, like, we'll probably get a ton of that different stuff in the future of the service. But I want to hear from you guys and your personal thoughts and opinions on this latest update. How do you feel about how Nintendo is directing the new path, being that we don't have a confirmed roadmap of games to look forward to, but it will just be most likely a 1 per month new edition? Or do you think that this is a one-off update to basically finish out the roadmap for the custom Robo ones in Japan, and they decided to give us Pokemon Puzzle League, and that yes indeed maybe the roadmap is finished and they won't be adding in things consistently to N64 library? I definitely don't feel like that, but I know that there's some opinions out there that thought that once that roadmap was done, that may be the end of the support for the service. And definitely share with me which N64 games you want to see added in the most next. Maybe Pokemon Stadium on the table now that we have so much Pokemon on the service. And also, do you think we're around the corner as soon as September from getting the Game Boy family of systems added into the service? And which games do you want to see featured on there if that is indeed the case? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, where we discuss the now confirmed return of E3 in a big way in 2023, with brand new leadership planning the event and a large discussion around the brand new patent that was spotted online from Nintendo, showing that they are working on their own type of upscaling technology. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.